Hey everybody, happy Sunday. We are live. Welcome. I hope you all had a great long weekend or great weekend and are maybe getting ready for some Thanksgiving festivities. Maybe some people have been traveling. So hopefully everybody's doing well. I am going to be talking tonight about all kinds of different things related to the college search process. So 3 different factors to keep in mind for your college search to really help you stay focused and identify schools that'll be a great fit for you and your student ideally. So I'm just going to give everybody a little bit of time to come in and get settled. Welcome. So glad to see everybody. If you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up or a heart. You can also go ahead and start putting some information in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from, what year your students are. It's always really helpful to have some context and know who's in the audience tonight. I know that there are some potential glitches right now going on. I'm getting some error messages or potential error messages about Facebook Live and the platform that we use to stream. So if you can hear me or if you are able to hear the information and see me okay, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Let me know that it is coming through. Otherwise, I will switch over and stream in a different way. So if you can just let me know, that would be great. Awesome. All right. Great. Perfect. We've got some hearts. Awesome. All right, great. So hopefully that means people can hear me, people can see me. If you are new, my name is Gina. I am with Advantage College Planning, and I like to hop on Facebook Live every couple of weeks just to share some information about the college application process, trying to really demystify things for families. And so content is sometimes geared more towards seniors, sometimes it's a broader audience. Tonight, we're going to be talking about college planning and thinking about the top 3 college fit factors. So the 3 most important things really to keep in mind as you and your students are starting to build your college list. So most of the information tonight will be most relevant and most timely for students who are juniors in high school. But certainly if you have younger students or even if you have seniors and now those admissions decisions are starting to come in and maybe you're starting to get overwhelmed, maybe you have more options than you thought you were going to have, coming back to these fit factors is really going to help you narrow things down and pick a school that will be a really great fit for your student. So again, if you are new to us, we have Advantage College Planning. Our main office where I'm located is in the greater Raleigh area. We have an office in Apex and in Raleigh, but then we do also have franchise locations all across the US. So I know I sometimes have people tuning in from California, Maine, Buffalo, Orlando, Florida area. So we're covering the map. So if you want to let me know where you're tuning in from, that would be really great. And also let me know what year your students are so that this way I can make sure I'm tailoring the information to be most helpful to you at this time. You definitely can also go ahead and put questions in the chat. So I'll see them pop up and I'll be able to answer them as we go along. And there also will be time for Q&A at the end. All right, awesome. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. So why are we focusing on college fit? Right now, families who are thinking about the college application process, especially seniors, but also juniors, start thinking less about fit in terms of themselves and how they're going to fit in the college process or on a college campus, and more they're just focused on getting in, right? The goal is let's apply and I want to get into as many schools as I can or get into this one specific school that's my dream school. That's the goal, that's the focus. But the focus on getting in is actually really short term if you think about it. So what we like to do at Advantage College Planning is think about the long term. Let's think about what happens after you get in and you matriculate on a college campus. Now what? Right? So your 4 years of college is a long commitment. It's a 4-year commitment. And we also know that if students end up at a school that isn't a good fit and they end up transferring, that can make that commitment even longer. Then instead of 4 years of graduation, now we might be looking at 5 or even 6 years to earn that bachelor's degree. So that's more time that you're not working and more money that you're spending on your 4-year education. So by focusing on fit now, we can make sure that your student is setting themselves up for success for those next 4 years that are to come. As adults who've lived through it, we know that the ages of 18 to 22 are such a big, important time for growth. So much change and growth happens in our lives between those ages. And so we really want to make sure that students are set up for success so that they can become the best version of themselves in those next 4 years. So let's talk about the top 3 fit factors that we focus on with all of our students. The first one that you need to be thinking of is academic fit. So most times when I talk to students about academic fit, they think I'm talking about major. And yeah, that is important. If a student does have a specific major that they want to pursue, then we definitely need to make sure that the school offers that as a major. But there's more to think about here. Number one, major to me isn't really all that important. Above and beyond making sure the college has the major, I know that statistically, your student is likely to change their major or maybe add on a minor or even double major before they graduate. So yes, I want to make sure that the school provides a strong program that they're interested in now, but I want to make sure that they're going to be set up for success if that interest changes as they get exposed to different classes and different ideas and different opportunities that they didn't even know existed when they were in high school. We need to, right, when we're thinking about major, I think of it like a lens, like a camera lens, and we're zoomed in really, really small on just that one major. But we need to zoom out and we need to really look at the big picture. Academic fit incorporates so many different factors, including things like class size. I talk to my students about who are you in a classroom? How do you engage in your classes? What classes are your favorite and why are they your favorite? If I have a student who tells me that the classes that are their favorite, the classes where they typically perform the best are the smaller classes, or maybe it's a bigger class, but the class where they've built a relationship with the teacher seems to really care. The teacher knows my name. The teacher follows up if I miss an assignment. Then I know that that student is going to be their best academic self in a college environment that's going to offer professors who take that same approach to the way that they manage their classroom. So that might look more like a classroom and less like a lecture hall, right? That is something that we have to think about. I have other students. I had one student a few years ago who was super introverted. And so I originally was thinking, okay, so you probably want a smaller school. Big school is going to be really overwhelming for you. And she said, no, absolutely not. A small school is really overwhelming to me because I know that if I'm in a small school, I'm going to be in a lot of discussion-based classes. And those are my least favorite classes in high school. It's so overwhelming for me. You know, everyone's looking at me. I'm on the spot. I hate it. She wanted to be in a big lecture hall where she can just sit, take in the information, take her notes, kind of do her thing, and then interact when she wanted to. So these are the things we need to be thinking about when we're thinking about class size, when we're thinking about who your student is as a learner. We also need to think about the academic culture of a campus. There are some campuses where the academic culture is pretty cutthroat, right? It's pretty intense. We're not sharing our notes with each other. If you miss class and I share my notes with you and you get a better grade than me, I'm going to be mad, right? There are some schools where that's kind of the culture, kind of the vibe. It's really competitive. Maybe, you know, there's only one opportunity. The professors might say, I only give out 1A a semester and it's your job to kind of fight for it, right? That could be a thing. So is that the kind of environment where your student would thrive? Would they really come into that sort of situation and say, wow, yes, this pushes me to be my best? You know, like iron sharpens iron, like this is my environment? Or is that going to completely destroy your student and really stifle their learning? Are they more of a collaborative learner where they want a lot of study groups and those kind of environments? So that's something to think about. Academic advising. So there are a lot of students who don't know what they want to major in, or maybe they've started to kind of narrow it down. They know, all right, I kind of want to land somewhere in the STEM area, or I kind of want to land somewhere in like humanities. I want to do a profession where I'm helping people, but they haven't quite figured out exactly what career they want yet because they're 17 years old and they don't know everything that's out there, right? Surprise. So what kind of academic advising is available for those students? What kind of program does the school have to advise students to help them find their path and then make sure that they're graduating on time? It's also important to think about things like the curriculum. So some schools are going to be more of a liberal arts institution that are going to be looking at education from the perspective of, we want students to be really well-rounded. We want students to know a little bit about everything. So yes, we want you to be prepared over here in your major, but we also want you to take all of these other classes in math and history and English and philosophy and social sciences so that you can really see this interdisciplinary connection between those areas and whatever it is that you're studying. For some students, that's great. I worked with some other students that would hate that. They only want to take the classes that to them make sense to take. Do I need this for my career? Yes or no? If no, this class is a waste of my time. Why am I paying for it? Right? So that's the beautiful thing about college. You have the choice. You get to decide what kind of academic environment's the right fit for me. So that's a really important thing to think about. Is it gen ed heavy, or is there some more flexibility? Is your student a hands-on learner? That student might do really well in a school that might offer a co-op kind of program, right? Where they're getting hands-on opportunities in a job environment while also earning course credit. We also need to think about our students who maybe have different learning differences or physical disabilities, or just students who are neurodiverse in general. If that is you, if you are a student logging in, or if you are a parent of a neurodiverse student, that's another factor to consider. So what types of supports does your student currently receive in high school? What kind of accommodations or modifications do they receive? And really thinking critically about academically, and then also in terms of all those executive functioning skills that help keep everything organized and make sure that everything's getting turned in on time, right? How is your student in terms of their strengths and weaknesses in those areas, and what kind of support might they need in a college environment when you're not there to, help them facilitate all of that? There's a wide range, obviously, of different levels of support for students who are neurodiverse in college. And so that's a whole nother thing that you should consider as you're looking at schools. Academically, big picture, it's really important to find kind of the sweet spot of academic challenge. So, and this is also where admissions comes into play. So colleges are looking to admit students who they believe will be academically successful at their institution. And that's the other thing that the student should be considering when they're looking at different schools. Do I have the skills necessary, the academic and executive functioning and personal skills, to be successful in this academic environment? Yes or no? And if not, are those skills that I can build? Are those skills that I can gain in the next year, year and a half before I apply to college? So we want students to be challenged, but we don't want them to be challenged so much that they're burnt out and they're overwhelmed and they're just trying so hard to keep up and they feel like they're not keeping up, right? We all have read the news. We've all seen lots of different instances where students have really been struggling on campus with mental health issues and feeling really overwhelmed with different aspects of the college experience, right? And a lot of that is academic. So that's why it's really important to think about where is your student at academically, and also those other skills, and how is that a fit for different types of schools. But we also don't want your student to be intellectually bored, right? We don't want them to be stunted. We want your student to be at a school where, again, they're at that sweet spot of challenged, but not challenged so much that they feel like they can't keep up. So all of those things go into thinking about, is this school an academic fit? Not just, does the college have my major or not? The second fit factor that we need to consider is personal fit. Sometimes we also refer to this as social fit, but social to me only makes me think of like how well I'm hanging out with my friends, right? When I talk to students about social fit, they think about social life. Personal fit encapsulates more of what really we're looking at here. So again, 18 to 22, huge time of growth. This is probably going to be the first time for many students that they're away from home, away from you for extended periods of time, having to figure things out on their own, right? For better or for worse, here we are. So the personal fit and the environment they're going to be in is really important. They're only going to be in a classroom about 15 hours a week as a full-time student. all the rest of their time is spent outside of class. So the personal fit, the environment that they're in, becomes an incredibly important part of not only their academic success, but also their personal feelings of success as well. Here are some things to consider. First is distance from home. So are you, and sometimes the parents and the students feel a little bit differently about this. So this is a good conversation to have, but are you comfortable with the idea of your student being a plane ride away, a time zone away? There's a difference between a plane ride, right? Like you could take a quick hour-and-a-half flight and still be in the same time zone, north or south, a little bit, and it's a direct flight and it's not too bad. Or we could be talking about a cross-country flight, crossing multiple time zones and maybe requiring a layover. So how do we feel about that distance? As well as how does your student feel about staying close to home, and being within an hour or two if they wanted to come home to do laundry or for someone's birthday or something like that. Geographic location is another thing that I talk about with students. Above and beyond the distance, we talk about what states do you see yourself living in? What parts of the country do you see yourself living in? Thinking about weather. It sounds kind of silly, but it is super important for some students. There are some students who are really negatively impacted by days without sun, right? Like they are emotionally impacted by cloudy weather. Well, we need to think about that. I also ask students how they feel about snow. So I grew up in New York. I went to Syracuse University for my undergraduate degree. I lived in Boston, went to Northeastern for my graduate degree. I know something about snow. So now I'm down here in North Carolina, and I've got some of these students who have lifelong lived in North Carolina, and they tell me that they like the idea of snow. That sounds fun to them. And so I have to try to really get them to understand, what snow really means if you're thinking about living in a place like Michigan or Maine or Buffalo, if we have anybody tuning in from there, right? Very different experience than what we get for snow in North Carolina. And I'm using my air quotes intentionally. Okay. So these are some important things to think about. Sports. So is your student hoping to be a recruited athlete? Or does your student just want to be able to play their sport for fun, like a club or intramural level? Is that sport offered on the college campus? The recruiting process is a whole nother consideration. We also work with students through that. And then, or if your student isn't an athlete, are they a spectator? I have some students who that is a deal breaker. If a school does not have Division I football, men's football, basketball teams, they're just not interested in the school. And then I have other students that really could not care less about sports. So again, you have to think about how important is that factor to you. Another big one is Greek life. So fraternities and sororities. Students, again, seem to have strong feelings either for or against them. Some students don't really care either way. If a student is definitely wanting to be involved in Greek life, obviously we need to make sure that Greek life is offered. There are some colleges and universities that have no Greek life on their campus, so we have to look at that. But for students who are either indifferent or are not interested in Greek life, it's just as important to look to see how big of a part in the campus culture does Greek life play. Because if 40%, 50% of the students on that college campus are in Greek life, and Greek life really runs the social scene at that campus, then we have to decide and investigate how will that impact your student's social experience on campus. Really important factor. Another thing to consider is safety. So safety in terms of the location, going back to that geographic location, right? How does your student feel in an urban setting? And does your student have the skills to keep themselves safe on a highly urban campus? Or does your student feel safe or comfortable in a very rural campus? Those questions are going to be answered very differently by different students. So we have to look at what does campus safety look like for your student? And that can bring up some different types of conversations for students with different religious backgrounds, our LGBTQ students, our Black, Indigenous, students of color, right? Those campus safety questions and conversations might look really different than they are maybe with a student who is white or who's from a different background. So these are some important things to keep in mind and to talk about. The key thing here is to find a school that will feel comfortable right now. We want your student to go to campus, walk on campus, be like, all right, I feel this vibe. Like I feel comfortable. It's passing the vibe check. I could feel comfortable here. but a place that's also going to offer them opportunities to grow over those next 4 years so that they're coming out, a more well-rounded and more knowledgeable and more experienced person. The third and final factor is financial. So makes sense. College is a significant investment for many families. This is the largest investment that a family will make in their lifetime, is in their child's education. Significant investment. And so this is a conversation that needs to be had between the parents and the student. And a lot of times families don't feel comfortable with this. They feel like finances, there's a boundary there, right? Like, we're the parents, we handle the finances. We don't need to be talking to our child about that. And I fully respect that. But when it comes to them choosing their college, there has to be at least some baseline conversation, because every family has a budget. And that budget might be what you can afford, or that budget might be, we can afford anything you want, but is it worth it? So just because you can afford something doesn't mean you think that it's worth the price tag. And so that's a conversation that you need to have with your student. If you don't want to get into the nitty gritty details, that's completely fine. But your student should at least have a ballpark idea of what the plan is for how their college education will be paid for, and what we're looking to kind of stay within in terms of cost. Are you planning for your student to take out loans or not? Are you planning to take out loans or not? Are you planning on your student working and contributing to the cost of their education or not? Right? All of these are some questions that should be discussed before you get into the application process. Because if you don't, here's what I've seen happen. You tell your student, not you, we're not being accusatory, family, hypothetical family tells their student, you're amazing. We love you. You should go and do anything that you want to do. We're parents. Of course, we want that for our student. You get into your dream college and we'll figure out a way to pay for it. Again, we're parents. This is what we do, right? The moment you become a parent, that kind of becomes built into your DNA, that's how you think. Student does what they need to do. Student gets into X dream college. Everyone cries. It's amazing. Oh my gosh, we have a big celebration. Can't believe it, right? Then the financial aid information comes in, and you're presented with sometimes a number that is not what you're expecting, right? And so now the family is faced with an impossible situation. Either we choose to tell our student that, while we did promise that you were going to be able to go to X institution if you got in, but now it's no longer a reality. Every parent's nightmare, right? Or we have to come up with some way to overextend ourselves to pay for something that is beyond either what we can afford or what we had planned to spend. No one wants to be in that situation. So the sooner you can have conversations, broad conversations about what the expectations are around paying for college, the better this part of the process is going to go. So there are different tools that you can use early that I recommend that all of our families use. So definitely recommend using, it used to be called the Estimated Family Contribution, or EFC, the financial aid system that is used to determine how much families pay for college is changing this year. It is now going to be called a different acronym. We love acronyms in higher ed. If you've been to my Facebook Lives before, you know this. So it is now going to be called the SAI, Student Aid Index. And so if you go to the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, you can find more information about the Student Aid Index. College Board, so the company that runs the SAT and the AP classes that your students might be taking in school, they had previously an EFC calculator on their website. They will likely also have an SAI calculator once that's all figured out. And so with these calculators, what you can do is you can enter in your kind of big numbers, your general tax information, and some information about your family, how many people in your household, those kinds of things. And it will give you a number, and it will say, all right, based on these general numbers, about this much is what the federal government will believe that you can afford for 1 year of this student's education. And that will at least give you an idea of what to expect. And then you can also go onto individual college websites and complete something called a net price calculator. So if your student has a specific school that is their dream school, do this. Google the school, go on the school's website, put in the little search, net price calculator, it will come up. Same thing, you're going to enter in your family's general tax information, and sometimes it also will ask information about your student, their SAT scores, their GPA, for scholarship consideration, and they're going to give you a general number. Then you know, okay, here's the ballpark, here's how I feel about this, we can probably make this work. This is completely inappropriate, but at least you know what you're getting into instead of waiting until after the student's already been admitted and we've had the big celebration and we've all gone and visited campus and bought the sweatshirts and bought the Christmas tree ornaments. And then we get the financial aid letter, and that's really disappointing. So it's definitely something to think about. Expectations, manage expectations. When it comes to paying for college and getting aid from the schools, something to keep in mind is that most of the scholarship money that you hear about students earning is from the colleges themselves. So yes, there are students who are getting outside scholarships, but that money is smaller in comparison to the amount of money that students are getting from the colleges themselves. And that money is coming based on financial need and also merit. When you're looking for merit aid opportunities, so scholarships, grants, free money from the college that does not need to be paid back, that is going to be awarded more generously from schools that are less selective. So the most highly selective schools and the Ivy League schools and the schools that have those 5 and 10% acceptance rates don't expect to earn a merit award, a scholarship financially from those institutions, because those institutions know, number one, that you would probably go anyway, even if it was full price, because of the name of the institution, right? And they reserve their funding for families who qualify based on financial need. The less selective schools that are still amazing and wonderful, but just might not have that same brand name or might not, be kind of at that same Ivy League level, know where they stand. They also know that your student is amazing and they want your student. And so if your student is admitted to one of these schools, those are the schools that are more likely to give your student opportunities for significant merit scholarship up to, a full ride. Again, that is still not an easy thing to get. It is not a guarantee for anyone, but those opportunities tend to be greater at schools where the selectivity is, they're a little bit more generous with their admissions rate. They're going to be more generous with financial aid. So next steps, a couple things to think about. So I know usually there's no students on this call. This is Facebook. This is not TikTok. But if there's any students on this call or parents, you can tell your students this. The first thing they need to do is know themselves. This is a big part of what we do at Advantage College Planning, leading up to the college search process. Before we even start thinking about building a list, is we work with students to help them get to know themselves. What are their strengths? What are their interests? What are their goals? Who are you? Then we can start building the list. You have to know who you are and what your strengths are and your possible areas of weakness, so that then you can build a list that is a good fit for you, right? And so, for example, something important, I'm going to give you some context here. So the college application process is so emotional. It is a very emotional purchase that you're making, because it's your child and it's their future and it's what you've all been working for their entire life. And there's all of this opportunity on the other side of it, right? It's a really emotional purchase. And so we go into the college search with that emotion leading. And that's sometimes where we can go astray. So think of the college search in a way of that you would approach buying a car, right? So if I today said, okay, my car is getting old, it's about time for me to buy a new car, I'm going to buy a new car. And if I said, I know I'm going to aim high and I want to get the best possible car that I can get, I'm going to get a Bugatti Veyron. I know that that is a fabulous vehicle. It has a great reputation. I'm going to get a Bugatti. Right? Before I can go and buy that Bugatti, there's a few things I need to think about. First, from the academic perspective, right? Do I have the skills that it takes to successfully drive that Bugatti from the dealer to my home, right? Probably not. I have never driven a standard vehicle. I've driven manual vehicles, automatic vehicles my entire life. There's a lot of buttons and things happening in that car. And the most powerful vehicle I've ever driven currently is my Subaru going, 70 miles an hour on 540. Interstate 540. So the power and technology and just sheer manual shifting situation that Bugatti is going to present me with, I am not prepared for that. So best case scenario, I'm going to just break it, not knowing how to manage the clutch. And worst case scenario, I'm going to get in an accident, right? So that's not great. And then if I think about the personal aspect of the Bugatti, I don't really care all that much about all the technology. That's not super important to me. The Bugatti is cool, but if I'm sitting in it and there's all these buttons and all these features, if I think about my current car, I use my radio and my Bluetooth for my phone. So from a personal perspective, like I don't really need all that other stuff. And then from a financial perspective, that car is out of my price range, right? So if you were thinking about the college search, the way that you would approach buying a car, similar large ticket purchase, it takes the emotion out of it and it starts to make sense. We want your student to choose a college where they're going to be prepared, they're going to be successful, they're going to safely get through, and they're going to feel really happy and confident with their experience personally, financially, emotionally, academically, right? So that's something that's really important to keep in mind throughout all of this search. Think about, if you were buying a car, how would you approach it? So the bottom line is that there are over 3,000 accredited four-year institutions in this country, and they're all really good for somebody, right? And many of them could be very good for your student. So by narrowing things down and sticking with these fit factors, that's going to help you take a little bit of the emotion that is already going to be there and really stay focused. When you're thinking about building your student's list, if you're looking for academic, look for majors first, but then also think about honors colleges, right? If you're looking at those slightly less selective schools, do they offer an honors college, right? To give your student a little bit higher of a level of rigor within maybe a less competitive pool. Look academic or financially, look for scholarship opportunities. Go on the college's website. Look for the scholarship opportunities. If you can't find anything within just a couple minutes of searching, that should tell you something. Schools that are really generous are going to make those scholarship opportunities big and bright, and they're going to be really all over the place, with how generous they are with scholarships. So that should tell you something. And in terms of personal fit, you really need to visit. And, online, you can do great videos. You can do virtual sessions. It's fabulous. But before you make a decision of exactly which school your student's going to attend, highly cannot recommend enough visiting in person to do a vibe check. See what the campus feels like. See where the campus is located. Check all those boxes. Does your student feel safe? Do they feel like this is a place where they could be for the next 4 years, right? So make sure that you visit. And then you can ask all those questions as well of admissions, right? What kind of scholarships do you offer? Is there anything that we're missing? Maybe sit in on a class or meet with a faculty member from the major that your student's interested in. But take all of those opportunities, do all of that research, and that's going to put you in the best fit to set yourself and your student up for a smoother college application process and a really successful 4 years. So if you have any questions, now is a good time to go ahead and put them in the chat. I am happy to answer them. And while you are doing that, I'll also let you know that I'm going to be back on December 3rd. So on December 3rd at 8 o'clock, we're going to talk about deferrals. So for my seniors who have been applying to college, some decisions will start coming out around mid-December. So just wanted to get ahead of those and talk about what happens if you receive a letter that says you've been deferred. What does that mean, and what are your next steps? Hopefully you found this to be helpful. Again, my name is Gina from Advantage College Planning. We have a lot of great resources on our website. My colleague Ariel has a fabulous podcast. My colleague Jamie does our blog. Lots of great resources over there. And if you're not already working with us and would like to talk about what that could look like, you can also schedule a consultation through our website as well, advcp.com. I hope you all have a great weekend and a wonderful Thanksgiving if you're celebrating, and we'll see you back here on December 3rd. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.